From each happily ever after, every wish upon a star. Let's break down the movies that shaped who we are. From memory lane to now and everything in between. The most famous of films to the ones we've never seen. Decade by decade, all the times we laughed and cried. And with a little pixie dust, they will all take flight. Reliving the feelings, and we're trying our very best. And if they mean the same to you, please be our guest. So hop aboard, we would love to have you as we hang with a certain mouth, the whole gang too. If you love nostalgia stuff, we hope this does the trick. Thanks for joining us as we deep dive the magic.
Hi, welcome back to the Deep Diving the Magic podcast. I'm Pedro.
And I'm Jeffrey. And thank you to everyone who watched our first episode on Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. If this is your first time finding us, thanks for coming in to hang out. But make sure you head over and watch the first episode on the film that started it all.
But today we're going to be going over Pinocchio.
Pinocchio.
Yep.
So Pinocchio was released on February 7th, 1940, the second Disney feature full-length film. February 7th, 1940 is also 47 years to the day before I was born. Before I became a real boy like Pinocchio. But we'll get there. So before we dive into the film, do you have any first thoughts or anything about the film itself?
I don't really remember it standing out in my mind as in my childhood. It wasn't one of my favorites. It wasn't one that it kind of felt like I was watching it over again for the first time, but also knowing what I was watching it the first time.
Is there a synopsis?
Yes, so the synopsis plot on IMDb is a living puppet with the help of a cricket as his conscience must prove himself worthy to become a real boy.
That does cover it.
Yep. Short and simple.
Short and simple. So, where does the movie take place? Or where's it themed at?
It takes place in Tuscany. I guess Florence, Tuscany, which is, I guess, in Italy.
Okay.
Which is very deceptive if you've ever been to Magic Kingdom. The restaurant there for Pinocchio is the Pinocchio Village Pizza House, which is very German. And pizza's not German, obviously. I guess pizza is Italian, though. Maybe that's what they're going for. Maybe they should have called it Casa, like it would have been if it was in Italian.
You know what I love about the Pinocchio's Village House is that it's looking over It's a Small World, and actually I have some It's a Small World notes coming up.
Yeah. Okay.
But anything else that you found in your research?
So the story comes from a children's novel that was called The Adventures of Pinocchio. That was written by an Italian writer, Palladio, or Palladio, sorry. And it was written back in 1883. 1883?
Yeah, I'm just... So again, in the opening credits, the Walt's 9 Men are listed as having worked on the movie. So, you know, they're still working. Something that I would say though is animation has come a long way in 3 years. 1937 to 1940.
Mm-hmm.
This film is beautiful. The animation in this film is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to go ahead and dive right in, or?
Well, so it opens up very similar with a storybook opening. So there's like a storybook of Pinocchio. It opens up. And then I had in my notes that the last movie, one of the dwarves had referenced Jiminy Cricket, like you had said. And he actually is the person that opens up Pinocchio, is Jiminy Cricket.
So can I do a quick hot take?
Yes, but he looks nothing like a cricket. I do have that in my notes, and it's always bothered me since I was a child. Like, he looks nothing like a cricket.
my first hot take here is that Jiminy Cricket, who we finally meet after his reference, like you said in the last film, has a much better singing voice than Snow White. And maybe that's why the dwarf said his name when they first heard her for the first time.
Okay. Okay. I can see that, I guess.
So when we first see him, there's this awesome first person shot of him hopping around, and it's through his eyes. And I always love that. It's like the camera is behind his eyes, like he's the first person. He's the conscious, which is what he is.
Yeah. Sure. When you first see him, he's also wearing like tattered clothes. He's got like a hole in his shoe, I think, and you can see his sock, and it's kind of like rags to riches here. So
He's just trying to find a place to stay. He's trying to find a place to. He stumbles on Geppetto's workshop.
Yep.
So we also meet Figaro, and Figaro is the first Disney cat. We're going to come across a lot of Disney cats. You should keep a list, but Figaro is the first.
Figaro is the first. So basically similar to the novel that was written, it kind of, I guess it's kind of told by Jimmy Cricket in the beginning. And then you see Geppetto, which I thought when I was watching it, he had very similar facial features to Dopey.
Yeah, I did write down,
my favorite door.
I know that there is conspiracy theories and about this, and it's nothing new, but the similarities between Geppetto and Dopey are pretty peculiar.
They are. So anyway, Geppetto's alone. He has his little wood carvings. He's alone. He doesn't really know that Jiminy's living in his house, obviously. And then he sees a wishing star. He makes a wish. But it's actually not a wishing star at all. It's the blue thing.
So, couple things about that.
And I thought it was funny that his wish, Jiminy didn't think it was practical at all. Like, he was just like, it's not important.
And then it worked out. So speaking of Geppetto's workshop, is all the clocks, they all look very, it's a small world-esque.
Okay, yeah.
Except for this one random clock of this kid or this lady spanking this kid's bare bottom.
I don't remember.
That wouldn't make it. Yeah, I'll point it out to you. But yeah, so he does make a wish.
Okay.
Something that I did think was kind of funny is he actually. So Geppetto lays down before he makes his wish, and he forgets to open the window. So he makes Figaro the cat get up from his very cute, comfy-looking bed that has a very cute, comfortable-looking litter box bed right next to it, to open the window because he forgets to open the window. And I wrote down that I think that's pretty funny because anybody that has a cat, I mean, you haven't met our cat yet, but our little pup has made a couple appearances. But anybody that has a cat, us included, knows that it's the cat that only makes the human get out of the comfortable bed, not the human that only makes the cat get out of the comfortable
between
bed.
2 and 3. That's Winston's time.
Winston's our little prince here. But however, if Geppetto remembered to open the window instead of Figaro making Figaro do it, would he have ever seen the wishing star for all this to happen? Yeah, because it's when Figaro opens the window that they notice the wishing star.
I mean, if he would have just got up himself, he would have seen it.
Hopefully, unless
I mean, why wouldn't he have seen it? I don't know, but like you said, the story would have been cut very short had he seen that.
So he does his wish as you were saying, and we meet the Blue Fairy, And
The Blue Fairy.
they did an amazing job on the Blue Fairy's entrance, especially for 100 years, like almost 100 years ago. It's just beautiful, like her transition.
Mhm.
Do you remember the words that she says to Pinocchio about making him a real boy? The 3 words that he must do.
No.
So he must be brave, truthful, and unselfish. Those were the 3 words that the fairy said.
It's actually very comical.
Yeah, I mean that's the plot of the movie. I mean, you could have written that in the IMDb plot that you were just reading right there. You mean anything about the Blue Fairy before we?
I don't really have a lot about the Blue Fairy. No, I just ironically, I don't know. As a child, I think the Blue Fairy, the Fairy Godmother, and then the 3 fairies in Sleeping Beauty. I knew there was a blue one, and for some reason, the blue one out of her, the Fairy Godmother in Cinderella, and then the Blue Fairy here, I kind of always felt like the same person.
I mean,
I don't think they're supposed to be the same person at all, but in my mind as a child, I thought they were the same person. So that's all I have to say about the Blue Fairy.
They're a fairy. So I must say though
I thought she was
that
very popular.
even the conscious, like Jiminy Cricket,
Mhm.
can be swayed by a pretty lady like the Blue Fairy because she like gives him attention and instantly sways himself. So even he can be topped by a pretty lady.
Sure.
Yeah. So as we know the story, Geppetto realizes that the puppet that's moving is actually our friend Pinocchio.
Mm-hmm.
And we hear the song "Give a Little Whistle," which is, I think, the first great Disney song.
I'm sorry. We have to go back to Snowlight and Seven Dwarfs and go with the Whistle While We Work.
Okay.
I think that's the best Disney song so far.
All right. Well, "Give a Little Whistle" is going to be short-lived because there's some fantastic songs in this movie. We also meet Cleo the fish.
Yeah.
Cleo the fish has better eyelashes than most models would pay for. I want everyone to go back and watch.
Cleo is a very beautiful fish.
Yeah,
she is a very beautiful fish.
And as we will learn later, she is a pro at staying in her fishbowl. No matter what is going to happen, she gets herself
even
back
underwater.
in that fishbowl. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So anything about that night before we dive into the next morning? Obviously, Geppetto's over the moon.
He is. No, not really. I mean, so Pinocchio becomes a real boy. And then I thought it was odd that Geppetto just sends him off to school. Like, you've set this child up for failure. Like, he has no idea how the world works. No explanation. Just be good. Good luck.
Yeah. So the next morning we wake up and the town is.
So none of this movie would have gotten as bad as it was had he not sent him to school. He could have been homeschooled and everything would have been great.
It's true.
But no, we send him off to school.
It would be short.
That's true.
So the next morning the sun comes up and there's a very Beauty and the Beast-esque town scene.
Yeah.
Where everyone's running around. I'm not saying they reuse that in the other film or anything, but we'll see in the next 50 years. But so Geppetto's Pinocchio's going to school.
Yep.
And on his way to school, he gets a little sidetracked by some people who I will reference in a second. But I will tell you that we hear the next song, which is an actor's life for me, which kicks "Give a Little Whistle" out of the seat for the best Disney song so far, because "An Actor's Life for Me" is a great song.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, we meet our friends, the conmen, Mr. Honest John and Stromboli.
Oh my gosh! So Geppetto has a pet cat and a fish. They are pets, a cat and a fish. And then you have these side characters that Pinocchio meets, and it's a fox and a cat. I'm pretty sure it was a cat, right?
So it's kind of like the.
But they can talk like humans.
What's the Pluto thing? What's the Goofy
and how does this make any sense in the movie?
Like the Goofy.
It bothered me so bad. And then peer pressure. peer pressure is definitely a thing that he gets from these animals that he talk.
So speaking of them talking, perfect segue. I wrote that Honest John and Stromboli, they're fantastic at their jobs, but they have the least menacing voices. Literally, they have the least menacing voices.
Yeah.
But yeah, they are animals. Like I said, just like Mickey and Pluto.
Yep.
So again, going back to the songs, the next song that we hear is "No Strings on Me," and that instant classic tops all of them. That is a top of the list there.
No,
That is 3 songs back to back to back.
I would have to say it's kind of a tie. I think it's a tie with Whistle Edward.
Okay, but hey, that's
in my book.
Yeah.
I mean, it's catchy. It is catchy.
We should keep track. That's my number 1 song so far.
I would say it's maybe mine.
Anything on that scene before I jump into the next one?
I mean, Pinocchio, No Strings on Me, and then the female puppet.
I don't remember this. So.
The female puppet comes in after, and she has strings on her.
Oh yeah, the scene. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I thought she looked way older.
I mean, she's been in the circus for a while, or on the puppet show for a
Well,
while.
not like an old lady,
Yeah.
but like obviously a young adult.
I mean,
looking
so-
puppet, not like
To be fair,
little boy Pinocchio.
Pinocchio's only been a boy for 1 day, so
Yeah. Well, she looked way older than Pinocchio.
so Pinocchio gets into this puppet show, and he gets conned, and he's naive. He gets conned, but they keep him in this cage as they travel from town to town. And I told you this while we were watching it, but you need to rewatch this. He could 100% fit out of those bars or that cage. Like, again, he didn't know anybody, but he could 100% fit out of the bars of that cage.
Short-lived movie.
So that's true.
Out of the cage.
So Geppetto, no, I'm sorry, not Geppetto. Jimmy Cricket is trying to find him.
Yep.
And you know how you could tell that this is sad and stressful?
It's raining.
Because film 2 out of 2, it is raining. It's a reoccurring thing. So whatever, they find him, or I'm sorry, Judy finds them, but they're trapped.
And he was upset. He was upset that he wasn't Pinocchio's best friend. He was only his conscience.
Mhm.
He was upset about that.
And what Pinocchio is probably most famous for is his lying, growing nose. And but honestly, his nose doesn't even grow until almost 1 hour into the film, which is about now when he's in the cage.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, I kind of, unlike the other movie, where things were happening a lot sooner than I remember, things in this movie happened a lot later than I remember.
I mean, yeah, his nose didn't grow for the first hour of the film.
The island that they go to,
Mhm.
it gets sold, right? It's sold to
Yeah. To
the other guy.
to the coachman.
Yeah,
Which I will
and
speak to in a
he ends up on this island with all these other boys.
Okay.
That
was called Pleasure Island?
Pleasure Island, I guess. Anyway, it's got like carnival looking things, like anything that you could think of as a young boy that you like. This is your thing. You're gonna be happy here. But then like Jiminy starts noticing that things are happening to these boys.
Mm-hmm.
And it was referenced before they go to the island that the boys never come back the way they were. So you kind of, I guess, foreshadowing it. But then Jiminy starts to notice that they are not, like something's happening to the boys.
They're not boys.
Yeah. So they start turning into donkeys.
So before we get too far ahead on that, like, again, he does get sold to what you were referring to.
Yeah.
And I did say, as I mentioned earlier, our friends Honest John and Stromboli were successful villains, but they weren't very menacing.
No.
But then we meet the complete opposite with this coachman character who is absolutely terrifying.
Yes.
He puts the evil queen in the first one to shame. He is the most terrifying villain that we've come across so far. And again, he does bring these boys to the island. Part of this island is Tobacco Row, which is something that would not last nowadays. Kids movie, it says you can smoke your heads off in Tobacco Row.
Yeah, kind of reminds me of North Carolina. Tobacco Road.
So they also use the word jackass a few times in this movie. Did you write that down? I think you wrote that down about how many times they used the word jackass.
No, I
It's
didn't.
3 or 4 times. They again things that wouldn't happen nowadays. But again, they turn into donkeys,
True.
as you were saying.
True. There was a kid,
Lampwick. Lampwick, yep.
He makes several appearances while they're on this island. And I wrote my notes, I'm probably a terrible person for this, but I thought he looked better as a donkey than he looked as a boy. He was
His transition scene is terrible.
yeah, it was a terrifying scene. But he actually did look better as a donkey than he did as a child. He was a kind of ugly child. That's terrible to say, but I mean, he looked better as a donkey.
So
Donkeys are cute.
I mean, that transition though.
I mean, it was a kind of good transition, but
So any kids that grew up in the 90s like us will understand this, but this island, it very much could have been a PSA for the DARE program. You
yes.
drink, you smoke, you lie, you gamble, they're gonna make a donkey out of yourself.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure at the beginning of the film it actually had a warning on there
Yeah.
about the drinking and tobacco use,
That's true.
which is something that was common back then, so
So, yeah.
wouldn't fly today in
No.
movies.
So Geppetto and his pets go looking for Pinocchio,
Yes.
and they get swallowed by a whale.
I do not remember this at all.
I'm sure that
Like,
was
I remember like when we watched it, but like as a like watching it, I was kind of like, wait.
that escalated quickly. They went through.
I feel like I'm at vacation Bible school. Like I did not feel like that was part of this movie.
So obviously the Monstro, the whale, has a big part at Disneyland, and he's in Fantasmic at Walt Disney World.
Yes.
Well, yeah, they get swallowed by a whale, and there's a big chunk of the movie where they're trying to figure out how to get out of Monstro.
Yeah. So they're still alive in him. On part of their boat.
And Cleo stays
Yes.
in her fish tank.
Cleo.
Or, yeah, her fish bowl.
Yes. And then I thought the scene where like Jiminy and Pinocchio are going to find him in the ocean, and he straps a.
Jiminy and Geppetto.
No,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Jiminy and yep, you're right.
Pinocchio, and Pinocchio like had like a rock to him, so he would sink to the bottom because he's still kind of I guess wood, so he's gonna float. And then they're going around the bottom of the ocean trying to find Geppetto and beside this well because somehow they knew he was in the well. I don't remember how they knew he was in the well, but they found out he was in the well and they're looking for the well, and all the other sea creatures, like when they ask him this whale's name, like everybody runs.
Well, they swim the yeah.
So that was interesting.
The under the sea animation is cool.
It is.
Yeah.
Very much so.
I think it's actually the best animated part of the film. So they end up, lighting a fire to make Monstro sneeze to get out.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that scene is in Fantastic. I love talking about that. So they get out, and it doesn't look good for Pinocchio. Pinocchio basically sacrifices himself to get out of Monstro.
Mm-hmm.
And Geppetto has a scene where he's sadly remembering Pinocchio and how much of a good boy he was.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, dude, you have known him for maybe cumulative 1 hour, if you think about it.
He made him.
But he was only a real boy for like an hour before they sent him to school.
But he made him.
Okay. So that's love.
His love.
So
I thought it was interesting that the Blue Fairy told Pinocchio that wishing upon a star doesn't actually make your dreams come true. Or she doesn't always say that, but I guess like looking back at it, like wishing upon a star doesn't really make your dreams come true. Doing the right thing does. So I guess like the overall message of the movie is a positive thing.
yeah,
Like him doing the right thing is actually what got him to be a real boy.
becoming real.
Which I guess, like you said, he did those 3 things. He was brave,
Unselfish.
unselfish.
Well, He had to become truthful.
When he saved Geppetto, like he technically hit all three of those things, but like doing the right thing gets you further in life than lying.
Or wishing upon a star.
Or wishing upon a star.
So neither of these pictures.
That wasn't even a star.
Neither of these pictures here in front of us do it justice, but when he becomes a real boy, he has blue his eyes. Did you notice that?
No.
It's wild how blue his eyes are. How he becomes a real boy.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm.
So he becomes a real boy, and we hear "When We Wish Upon a Star," which can make a real man tear up. Hey, it was any more thoughts on the movie itself, or would you rate it?
I'd have to look, but I rated it. I don't remember liking it as a kid. I found it terrifying. It wasn't as terrifying, obviously, as an adult, but I mean, I still didn't think I really liked it any better. So I gave it a 5 out of 10.
Okay.
And then like the overall rating on IMDb is a 7.5 out of 10. Which I believe is the same thing as Snow White is, right?
Yeah, in that ballpark at least. I would have rated it much higher.
I mean, there was things I liked out of it better, like certain characters, like Figaro and Cleo were great, but as a movie in general,
I love this movie. I love it more than I even remember loving it. Jiminy Cricket is a fantastic character. He even goes out of his way to thank the Blue Fairy at the end, which is something I love.
Yeah.
He is my favorite character that we've run into so far, so I guess we'll call him my dopey of these first couple of films. But without diving too much deeper, going back to the synopsis in the beginning, it's laid out for you.
Yeah.
There's a couple twists and turns with Monstro the Whale and Pinocchio winning in the end.
I really don't remember him as a child. I don't remember him being in the well. So that part to me, that was kind of like watching it for the first time. I honestly don't.
We achieved our goal.
Okay,
so we're gonna dive back into this list upon a star right here. So now we have the option. So currently, what do we have in number one?
Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is currently both our number ones. But now we have this Pinocchio. Where, AJ, would you put Pinocchio on your list?
Pinocchio.
So your list currently is.
Sorry.
Your list currently is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs as number one, and Pinocchio is number two. Where on myself, I'm going to slide Snow White down a little bit, and I'm going to put Pinocchio as number one. And knowing what we're watching next, Pinocchio's going to stay there a little bit. So our next film is from November of the same year, 1940. We'll be watching Fantasia. And boy, oh boy, what I can say about that. And I think that hers is not going to be the same as mine. Thank you again for watching. Thank you for putting up with us as we're learning what we are doing. We do have an Instagram. Give us a follow. We do have this YouTube. Thank you for watching. And we have an email.
And Spotify.
Yeah. Again, we're learning what we're doing. Send us your email. I believe the emails, I know I was going to say at the end of the film, but it is Deep Diving the Magic Podcast at gmail.com. But again, thank you for hanging out, and we'll see you soon for Fantasia.
Thanks for deep diving the magic. Bye.